Have you ever sat down to learn something completely new, maybe a complex new skill or specifically a new language, and you just hit an absolute brick wall?
Oh, yeah. Like, constantly.
Right. You look at the vocabulary list, you stare at the grammar rules, and you catch yourself thinking, my brain is just too old for this.
It's a really common feeling.
Yeah, you feel like the window of cognitive opportunity closed somewhere around your 20th birthday, and now you're simply out of luck.
Exactly. And frankly, it's completely understandable why we feel that way. I mean, we've been socially and culturally conditioned to think of deep structural learning as, a young person's game.
Oh, totally. We assume that if we didn't absorb a skill effortlessly as a child, the machinery is just broken.
Right, which is just so untrue.
Well, welcome to this deep dive. Because whether you are a lifelong student or you're picking up a book for the first time in decades, today is for you, the learner.
It really is.
Today, we are looking at a stack of notes and an interview that completely dismantles that assumption about the aging brain. And it proves that the machinery is absolutely fine. We've just been using the wrong manual.
A completely outdated manual, yeah.
Exactly. So we have an incredibly insightful business document here from a language mentor named Katka. And back in 2020, she completely flipped the script on language learning.
She really did. It's fascinating.
Our mission for this deep dive is to unpack her unique methodology, which relies heavily on brain science and psychology, and explore the really surprising business realities of catering to an audience that society often ignores. Okay, let's unpack this.
Let's do it.
Katka didn't start out in some corporate boardroom or a university linguistics department.
Right. Not at all. The origin story here is incredibly organic. It's rooted in just, personal observation.
Like she was just living it.
Exactly. In 2020, Katka was deep in the trenches of learning her fourth language.
Her fourth.
Yeah, she's very driven. And her friends and acquaintances were watching her navigate this process successfully, so they started coming to her for advice.
Makes sense. Like,
Wow.
What's your secret?
Right, because they were struggling immensely just to grasp basic conversational English. And as Katka started looking closely at what her friends were actually doing to study, she had this massive realization.
Which was?
They weren't failing because they had a bad mobile app. And they weren't failing because they lacked discipline or, intelligence.
Right.
They were failing because the methods they were using were fundamentally flawed for their specific demographic.
And that demographic is highly specific, which is what makes this whole thing so compelling. We aren't talking about college students prepping for a semester abroad in London or 20-somethings trying to boost their resumes.
Not at all. Katka specifically targets older adults. We're talking primarily about women over 40, 50, 60.
Wow.
Yeah, she even maintains a dedicated client base well into their 70s.
That's amazing.
It is. These are individuals who have wrestled with the English language for decades. They've tried the community college night classes, the expensive software, the flashcards.
And they just keep hitting that wall we mentioned earlier.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
Which makes the core scientific premise she teaches them right out of the gate so powerful. Because before she even touches a verb conjugation, she sits them down and basically says, your memory isn't bad.
I can't even imagine the relief of hearing that from an expert.
Right. It must be unbelievable. She goes into the cognitive science, explaining that kind of memory you rely on to memorize random, disconnected lists of vocabulary words. That does naturally weaken as the human brain ages.
It's just a biological fact.
Yeah, but she points out that other types of memory and intelligence actually strengthen over time.
What's fascinating here is how she frames the neurobiology for her students. It's absolutely vital for adult learners to internalize that their cognitive hardware hasn't broken.
It's not broken at all.
No, it just requires a different operating system than what they used in high school. The issue is that the old methods, those rote memorization drills we all suffered through 30 years ago, they were specifically designed to exploit the teenage brain.
Oh, that makes so much sense.
Right. Teenagers lack life experience, so their brains rely heavily on memory to absorb raw, disconnected facts.
Because they have no context to attach it to yet.
Exactly. But as we age, our brains evolve. We develop what cognitive psychologists call crystallized intelligence.
Crystallized intelligence.
Yeah, it's this sophisticated ability to use acquired knowledge, lifelong experience, and complex associations to understand new concepts.
So the brain cells for languages are still there.
They are entirely intact. They just need a different trigger. You cannot brute force isolated data into an older brain. You have to weave that new information into a rich existing context.
It's like trying to run a brand new app on a vintage computer without updating the drivers. The computer is fine, but the instructions are wrong.
That is a perfect way to put it.
But wait, if the cells are there, why do so many adults get stuck as eternal beginners? Like, if their crystallized intelligence is so strong, shouldn't they eventually figure out a workaround?
That is the crucial question. And the answer has far less to do with their inherent intelligence and, well, everything to do with their psychological baggage.
Oh, psychological baggage, like
Yeah.
confidence issues.
Big time. Katka draws a very sharp, deliberate distinction in her admissions process. She actively does not want complete blank slate beginners.
Really?
Yeah. Furthermore, she completely refuses to take on perfectionists who tell her they need a strict teacher with a whip to force them to stay motivated.
No whip allowed.
Exactly. She is exclusively looking for what she accurately diagnoses as false beginners.
False beginners. I love that term.
It perfectly captures their reality. These are people who are essentially drowning in linguistic theory. They've spent years, sometimes decades, diligently completing grammar exercises in workbooks.
They know the rules.
Oh, they know the technical rules on paper better than some native speakers do, but they have never actually put that theory into practice.
Wow.
They're completely paralyzed by this massive, intimidating gap between what they logically know they should be able to say and what their mouth can actually produce when they're put on the spot.
So they just freeze.
They completely freeze.
Their motivation for finally seeking out a mentor to bridge that gap completely subverted my expectations. I mean, if you think about a retired 65-year-old taking up English, the immediate assumption is that they want to travel.
Right, like ordering a croissant in Paris or navigating a train station in London.
Exactly. But looking through Katka's notes, these specific students aren't learning for travel at all.
Not even a little bit.
They are putting themselves through this rigorous process for something much deeper, which is dignity.
Dignity. It is an incredibly heavy, powerful motivator. Honestly, much stronger than the desire for a vacation.
It changes the entire context of the endeavor.
Yeah.
It becomes about proving to themselves that they can finally conquer this massive lifelong hurdle. It's a deeply personal internal quest.
It really is.
It's not about collecting stamps and a passport. It's about looking in the mirror and knowing, I didn't let this thing defeat me.
Yeah.
And because their motivation is entirely internal, her biggest success stories are never about a student passing a formalized C1 certificate test.
Oh, definitely not.
For anyone unfamiliar, a C1 certificate is essentially the gold standard for language fluency. It proves you can function at a near-native professional level. But her students aren't chasing that external validation.
No, the shift here is from accumulating theoretical knowledge for a test to chasing what Katka calls micro-wins.
Micro-wins.
Yeah, and that's where the actual neurological breakthrough happens. Because these learners are driven by dignity, a micro-win is just profoundly validating.
What does a micro-win look like for them?
Well, a victory is not delivering a flawless, grammatically perfect 10-minute monologue. A massive victory is simply sitting down in a comfortable chair with a simplified book and realizing you just understood an entire page without reaching for a dictionary.
Oh, that's huge.
Or sitting on the couch watching a movie with subtitles and suddenly catching one complete, fully understood spoken sentence.
Instead of just picking out a random word here and there.
Exactly.
Oh, man, the pure jolt of dopamine from that moment. Just that overwhelming feeling of, oh, I actually got that. I heard it, and my brain translated it effortlessly.
Yes. And psychologically speaking, that seemingly small victory provides a massive sustained surge of positivity. It acts as a wrecking ball to years, sometimes decades, of academic frustration.
So what does this all mean? Is she teaching English? Or is she basically acting as a psychological guide for a demographic that feels intellectually invisible?
Honestly, she has to be both. But they have to happen in a very specific sequence. You cannot implement the language instruction until you address the psychology.
Right. You can't teach a panicked brain.
Exactly. She has to meticulously dismantle their performance anxiety before she can build their functional vocabulary. If a student is locked in a state of panic, their brain's amygdala basically shuts down the cognitive centers required for absorbing new linguistic patterns.
So knowing that the environment itself has to change to prevent that panic, her instructional design makes perfect sense. I mean, you can't just look at a terrified adult and command them to stop being anxious.
That never works.
No, you have to architect an ecosystem where that anxiety has no oxygen to survive. And her main program, called Memory Mission, seems perfectly engineered to do exactly that.
It is a masterclass in empathetic course design. Memory Mission is entirely asynchronous, meaning there are no live components, and it drips out slowly over the course of 4 months.
Which is such a relief, I'm sure.
Huge relief. She intentionally avoids the traditional Zoom classroom format entirely. There's no live gallery of faces watching you, no awkward moments where you have to raise your hand.
Zero risk of looking foolish in real time.
Zero.
And the curriculum itself is totally custom built. She uses a novel that she wrote herself, specifically for this course.
Yeah, written at a B1 level.
Right, which is a solid intermediate stage. And the subject matter is crucial. It's not about corporate business negotiations or asking a cartoon tourist for directions to the post office. It's a story about human relationships.
Which is so much more engaging.
It comes complete with a translated Czech version, so the students aren't left entirely adrift if they lose the plot, detailed grammar notes, and an audiobook. And the audiobook narrator actually alternates between British and American accents.
Which is brilliant.
She is exposing these sheltered learners to the real, messy, inconsistent way the English language actually sounds in the wild.
Yeah, and notice what is conspicuously absent from this entire 4-month curriculum traditional homework.
No worksheets.
No fill-in-the-blank worksheets, no multiple-choice quizzes. She recognizes that those tools trigger the exact academic trauma that paralyzed these students in the first place.
So what does she do instead?
Instead, she leverages technology they already use every day, which is WhatsApp. She sends daily conversational prompts to a cohort group chat.
Oh, I see.
Sometimes the prompt is an analytical question about the book, but often it's just about her own daily life. Like she might send a message about what she cooked for dinner yesterday or a minor frustration she's dealing with.
Just casual conversation.
Exactly. She's fostering this concept of English immersion in a way that slips naturally into the quiet pockets of their daily routine.
Rather than demanding they sit at a desk for 2 hours of rigorous study.
Right. But the truly critical detail of this WhatsApp ecosystem is how the students respond. While Katka posts her daily prompts to the communal group chat, the students are instructed to reply to her entirely privately.
Privately.
Yes. They send her direct voice notes or text messages that no other student will ever see or hear.
Here's where it gets really interesting. It's like replacing the terror of a public karaoke stage with the safety of singing in your car, with vocal coach secretly writing in the passenger seat.
Yes, that is exactly what it is.
They get all the motivational benefits of a community without any of the debilitating performance anxiety.
If we connect this to the bigger picture of adult learning, the genius of this asynchronous private feedback loop is that it completely bypasses the fragile adult ego.
The ego is so tricky.
It is. We have to remember who these people are outside of this course. Older adults have spent their entire lives building competence.
Right, they're professionals, parents.
They run households. They manage finances. To suddenly be reduced to the incompetence of a toddler, struggling to form a basic sentence, and to have to do that publicly is viscerally terrifying.
It's humiliating.
By permanently removing the audience, Katka completely neutralizes the shame and the fear.
It creates a perfectly safe harbor for them to fail privately, which cognitive science tells us is the only environment where genuine neuroplasticity occurs. I mean, you have to make mistakes to learn.
You have to.
But as beautiful and profoundly intimate as this teaching style is, reading through the business notes reveals a completely wild reality. The very intimacy that makes her method work so well is exactly what makes marketing her business incredibly difficult.
Oh, it creates a fascinating, almost contradictory set of entrepreneurial challenges. She has essentially built a highly customized artisanal service in an era that demands scalable, viral marketing.
She hit a very serious wall with social media. During her first year of business, she hustled and grew her Instagram presence to 12,000 followers.
Which is massive for a niche language educator.
It really is. But immediately after hitting that milestone, she completely burned out. She was totally exhausted by the algorithmic command to constantly play the role of an influencer,
It's exhausting just thinking about it.
constantly being on camera, pointing at floating text, churning out daily content just to stay relevant.
Being a high-touch, highly empathetic educator is emotionally draining on its own. You're constantly absorbing your students' anxieties. Trying to be a charismatic content creator on top of that is a guaranteed recipe for burnout.
So she realized the model was unsustainable.
Yeah, and she executed a brilliant pivot.
The pivot is incredibly clever. She is currently reviving her Instagram for campaigns, but she is decisively stepping out of the spotlight. Instead of being the energetic teacher on camera, she is utilizing AI image generation.
Oh, this part is so smart.
Right. She creates rich, atmospheric visuals that bring the fictional characters from her B1 novels to life. She's essentially turning her marketing feed into a serialized visual drama.
Because she realized a fundamental truth about her audience. She doesn't want to sell them grammar rules anymore. She wants to sell them the story, the emotional resonance, and ultimately that feeling of victory.
Yeah.
From a business perspective, this is a textbook example of strategic brilliance. She is actively transitioning her company from a service business, which exhausts her, to a scalable product business.
By focusing on the books.
Exactly. Publishing 3 of these B1 novels a year and keeping the high-touch memory mission to only once a year in the fall, it protects her mental health.
It sounds like a paradox. She's built a business entirely on connection, yet her clients are too isolated to give her word-of-mouth marketing. How does a business survive when its best customers are hiding their success?
What you're describing is the closeted learner phenomenon, and it's a very real paradox in adult education. Her students absolutely love her methodology, but they rarely recommend her.
Because they literally don't have anyone to tell.
Precisely. They are undertaking this massive challenge in near total isolation. Their peers, their friends, even their spouses don't understand why they're learning English in their old age.
Society tells them they should be relaxing or gardening,
Right. They don't have a social network of fellow adult learners.
so they keep it a secret. You have this image of a 65-year-old woman sitting quietly at her kitchen table, rewiring her brain, and then just quietly closing the book.
Which means Katka can't rely on organic word of mouth. She has to rely on selling the compelling narrative through her books, trusting that the product will quietly find the isolated people who need it.
And once they find the books, they inevitably find her. They start reading, they experience that sudden jolt of realization that they can understand a complex story without a dictionary, and they are hooked.
And eventually, they filter their way into that exclusive fall cohort because they suddenly crave that safe connection.
It's a self-sustaining ecosystem. And if we look back to distill Katka's ultimate message, it boils down to acknowledging the physical reality of neuroplasticity. Transitioning away from old-school drills to building practical skills in context, it's exhausting for the brain.
It requires immense patience. The brain is literally consuming more energy to forge those new connections.
And she acts as the guide through that critical phase until it becomes a habit.
It's a shift from correction to connection.
And for you listening, this isn't just about English. It's about how we approach learning any new skill as we get older, focusing on context, ditching the pursuit of perfection, and seeking out that feeling of relief when we finally understand.
Absolutely. And I think it leaves us with a lingering thought. If traditional learning methods are actually fighting against our natural brain development as we age, what other failing skills or abandoned hobbies in your life aren't actually failures, but just waiting for a different cognitive trigger?
Wow, that's a powerful way to look at it. Maybe your brain isn't a vintage computer that's obsolete. Maybe you just need to update the drivers. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. See you next time.